Yeah, on the friendliest level, the friendly level, I think that, Balinese people are like Indonesians on steroids, right? And then the Sonorians are another, or, the Balinese and the Sonorians are another level on top of that.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where to from here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos, and this is the podcast Where to From Here, where we travel the world and speak to luxury hotel leaders about the future of luxury travel. Now, today we're going to Sanur in Bali. Now, spoiler alert, I lived in Jakarta. I love Indonesia, and I have been to Bali many, many times. And I'm lucky enough to have been to the Meru Hotel about maybe 6 weeks ago, and I reviewed it. And would you believe I gave it a 10 out of 10, which is really rare for my reviews. Now, this hotel is being hailed as the most luxurious in Bali right now. It is 5 stars. I believe it's on 42 hectares. So it's on a massive property. It has an incredible design. And one of the aspects that I loved about it was the spa. And guess what? It's not even open yet. So I was attending the spa treatments in kind of temporary spa rooms. There was a water healing at sunrise. There was a tarot card reading, and there was a sound healing session. And trust me when I say I've been to a lot of wellness retreats and a lot of spas, and the treatments at the Meru were some of the best in the world that I've ever had. It speaks volumes about this hotel, but for me, it speaks volumes about Bali and about Indonesia and the people and the spirit of luxury hospitality that is there. But let's welcome Ed to the program to tell us all about it. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you. Today's Thursday, which is, we celebrate Thursdays as our Balinese day. And, even myself, we dress up in Balinese garb and, to celebrate the culture and the spirit of the place. So it's just good timing that we're talking today on a Thursday.
Oh, you look absolutely fantastic. Now,
Thank
in
you
my
very much.
introduction, I referenced the Meru because, of course, that's the first part of the property that's opened and where I stayed and reviewed. But
That's right.
that hotel is part of a whole health, retreat and hospital on this property and on this site. Can you talk us through what is going on there?
Yeah, well, the whole complex, the 42 hectares, it's part of the, special economic zone, which was created by the Indonesian government to promote medical tourism and wellness for Indonesians in particular, but also for guests coming from other countries. So the properties that we have here, we have the original Bali Beach Hotel, which goes back to 1966, the original. And that's
And hang
been
on, was
renovated.
that can I just stop you there? Was that the very first five-star hotel or first hotel in
Yes,
Bali?
it was. That was the vision of the father of our nation at that time, of Indonesia, and he was inspired by going on a trip overseas, and he saw these big hotels on the beach in Miami, and he said, I would like to build something like that in Sanur. His history, family history, he's actually has roots here. His mother's actually Balinese. So the Balinese people revered him, and he was very instrumental in building this. It's the only 10-story building in Bali. After that, they put a moratorium later on to not build any more high rises, which was anything
And of
taller
course,
than
you're
a coconut.
talking about Sukarno Suharto. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Yes. So basically, the whole hotel was envisioned. It was run by government entities for the longest time, and it still is. It was again probably one of the first international standard hotels, here in Bali in general. But it's got 100 it's about a small part of our property, but at the same day, it's actually the foundation of the property, right? Everything else was built around that. So most recently, in 2024, we opened up the Bali Beach Hotel again after it's been completely renovated, as well as the convention center right next to that, which seats up to 5,000 people for a conference. It's 3,900 square meters, a massive convention center. And then next to the other side of the Bali Beach, next to the Olympic-sized swimming pool we did, there's the Meru, which is 184 suites, which is our luxury product, and that's geared more towards that sort of segment of the market is looking for a little bit more room. Again, the rooms are 83 square meters minimum. They go up to 120 square meters, and that's adjacent to the spa that we're building and across the street from the hospital. The Bali International Hospital is, that's the cornerstone of the medical tourism here. Adjacent to that hospital, by the way, will open up in June, fully open in June. They'll do some medical checkups starting in April. But the clinics, are the real, piece, because all those clinics that are opening up adjacent to the hospital will be international brands and doing everything from in vivo treatments to stem cell therapies, fresh cell therapies. They've got aesthetic clinics, everything from plastic surgery to hair and dental. They've got pretty much that all covered. So that's going to be a pretty exciting part of that.
And just on that, just on the hospital side of it or the medical side of it, I did some reading, and I believe there's a lot of incentives for foreign medical people and doctors to come and practice there. Is that right?
That is correct. So all of the heads of the departments in the Bali in the Bali International Hospital, those will be manned, by international doctors, and the idea is to do knowledge transfer to local doctors, a lot of which will come back to Indonesia from overseas to take positions, senior positions in a hospital as well. But all of the clinics, that are attached to the hospital, those are all international brands. The biggest one being Blue Cross Medical, which is mostly concentrating on aesthetics and stem cells. And they'll have doctors from everywhere coming in and out from, everywhere from Korea to Japan to Germany. Some Indonesians that are actually living in Australia that'll come back. So that's going to be definitely, a real highlight here. So the idea is to get Indonesians, to not go overseas to places like, Penang or, Bangkok, KL, Singapore. They go to Switzerland, Germany to get all these treatments that they can't get here. So bringing that here, that'll keep them here, and it'll also attract a whole new segment of the market, which will really change. It'll be a really game changer for Bali, and in particular in Sanur, on this side of the island, where medical tourism will become a big boom for us eventually.
Yeah, and I have to say, having lived in Indonesia, as I mentioned earlier, this heralds a new era in medical, standards in Indonesia, because living in Jakarta, that was always one of the issues, might I say, as an expatriate, and in the
Absolutely.
expatriate community is the standard of medical care available. And even expatriates, most people would leave if they had to have major surgery or certainly anything
Right.
aesthetic. And now you're saying that is going to change, and they can not only stay in Indonesia, they can go to Bali and recover there in that beautiful
Absolutely.
spiritual healing environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where we come in here, So attached to that, the hotel really provides that opportunity for people not only to come here for their treatments, but as outpatients. They would get, top class, place to convalesce, relax, and really do, the things that they need to do to help themselves, to get better, to get ready to go back home. Some of those will be long stay guests, some of those will be shorter stays. But we've created a nice, integration between our services and the hospital as a one-stop shop, so people can come in and they can book all that together and bundle it. And that's really, a game changer again in the industry, how we put all that together and we market it, together.
That's
So again, all
fascinating.
part of the
And
Sonora economic zone.
And tell me, because my experience, having, as I said, just reviewed it, is that it really is one of, if not the most luxurious hotel in Bali right now. But of course,
Yeah,
I stayed there before the hospital opened. So all of
right.
this aspect of the site and of the property just wasn't
Yeah,
happening when I was there. So
yeah.
what will it be like for the luxury traveller when there's guests there recovering from operations? Will you keep them separate? I mean, is it still going to be the Meru, that is, a functioning
Yeah.
luxury hotel for tourists?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the intention. Not only for international, for patients as well coming over and convalescing, but obviously those people that are coming there at that level of treatment, they're probably the same luxury guests that you'd have, on a usual basis. So it's our job to make sure we take care of them, as well as all the other international and Indonesian guests coming in for that luxury experience. Again, the Meru is, completely separate from the Bali Beach Hotel and the convention centers on one side, right? So we have the Meru, which is it's sort of a haven of tropical wellness, right? Which has its own little vibe, and completely separated. The property's so big, it's got its own pool, it's got its own spa, so that's really how we kind of differentiate between one to the other. Yeah.
Wow. And so tell me about the other property. Is that 5-star or?
Oh, the Bali Beach is for sure. It's been completely renovated from top to bottom. We've added a restaurant, which is our signature rosso, which is Indonesian for taste, and that's very very focused on really elevated Indonesian cuisine. Where we take very very fresh, great ingredients, and we make sure that we cook it in the traditional way, but present it a little bit differently. And we're getting really good feedback on the food there. It's absolutely top notch. And we've added some meeting rooms on that side as well to convention center. So that's all part and parcel of sort of that experience. We have about 40 suites over there as well, especially on the top of the building, which the views are unparalleled. There's nowhere else in Bali that has views like those. So the suite product over there is actually just top notch as well. It's a very, very nice room, about 120 square meters. Very nice for families. So that's more geared towards families, both Indonesian and international. We get a lot of Australian guests bringing their families in there. So it's a nice configuration to bring, a larger family, which we get quite a few actually. That extended family stays that we get from Australia, it's, got grandma, grandpa, all the way down to the grandkids, in between. So it's good. Yeah, very, very nice product for that.
And Ed, in your role, are you sitting on top of all of this?
Yeah, so I oversee the hotels and the convention center. The hospital
Wow.
is managed by Swire out of Hong Kong, and they're doing a top job putting some great specialists together for that. And the facility itself is just unbelievable. It's like, I mean, it's probably one of the best hospitals in Asia, for definitely, if not the world. I mean, it's fantastic. It's about 250 beds over there for inpatients. But again, they'll concentrate on that. We'll concentrate when they're coming in and getting treatments and need some convalescing on this side. And yeah, it's a nice little escape for people to do that, yeah, and get involved in all the other things we do here, some of which you've experienced, which I think you enjoyed quite a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And tell me, I mean, one of my questions to you was how is Bali changing in 2025? But I would say that you're at the epicenter of it, sitting where you are.
Yeah, well, we'd like to think so. I think, eventually, we have two restaurants right now. We have the main restaurant of Runica, which you would have enjoyed while you're here. We
Oh,
have
and
the
that's
Rosso.
Sunday brunch. I have to stop you. That's Sunday brunch. And Sunday brunch has always been a thing in Southeast Asia. I think it started in Hong Kong, didn't it, 1,000 years ago? And
Right.
I've been to a lot of them in Bali, and yours was just top
Thanks.
notch. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
drinking at the moment, but the wine and cocktail offerings were out of this world. The roasts, big roast lamb, the roast pork, it was just
Okay.
incredible,
Well,
incredible.
sorry to hear you were on the wagon while you were here, because we do have some really nice cocktails and stuff like that, locally inspired, of course. But we, got a great following now on Sunday brunch with a lot of our local expats as well as our local families that come in, which is really good to see. Doing part. But eventually, we'll be adding three more restaurants. We have a Japanese restaurant on the ground floor, right at the Bali Beach. On the top of the Bali Beach, we're building a beautiful AV steakhouse. And then we have a Chinese restaurant on the other side of the convention center, right off the beach. We're also building. We've already built a beach deck, and we'll be finishing the bar for that this month and the next. And so eventually, we'll have about 7 restaurants on property. So this will become, when we talk about the epicenter, this really becomes the epicenter of food and beverage for Sanur. Sanur has always had a lot of great local offerings and some good, decent middle of the road restaurants, but nothing really on the top elevated level. So this will give probably, 5 really good solid restaurants to choose from when you come as a guest, plus all the beach bars. We've got a cigar lounge planned. We've got a wine bar planned on top of that. So yeah, so
Wow, I need to be
eventually,
drinking next time I come back.
well, I'm doing the best I can right now to get everything finished up. But it's probably going to take a little while. Some of those restaurants will
Yeah.
be run by third parties, but very professional operators. Just like the clinics next to the hospital, it's integrated into the whole envelope of what we do here. So the
It's
important
really
thing
interesting
is
though, because Sanur has always been, in my opinion, one of the sleepiest locations for mainstream tourists to go to in Bali. I mean, I've always recommended it to people at the end of their trip because It's close to the airport. They don't have traffic problems getting to the airport. They can really chill out. And for someone like me who's been going to Bali for over 30 years, it's really like stepping back in time to the old Seminyak in terms of your beautiful, pathway in front that hugs the coastline. The sunrises are the best on the island, and the people there are really calm and chilled and generous and kind, like all Indonesians. But Sanur has a special signature of its own. They're just not as pushy when they're selling things and communicating with tourists as they can be in some parts of Bali.
Yeah, on the friendliest level, the friendly level, I think that, Balinese people are like Indonesians on steroids, right? And then the Sonorians are another, or, the Balinese and the Sonorians are another level on top of that, right? And I think that they really, that comes out, with our employees. Again, we don't script what they say. We let them, pretty much out to the wild, and we train them on service standards, of course, but, we let them be themselves, which I think is very important. I think the thing to remember about Sanur is that it's always been that sleepy thing. But again, for the convenience getting to the airport, you're absolutely correct, because the new ring road, comes straight into the north part of Sanur, which is where we are. Yeah,
Wow.
nice place.
And look, I looked at your bio and you have worked all over the world. And you're a GM who's really moved a lot relative to a lot
Yeah,
of GMs that I've met and interviewed.
right.
So I'd love to hear about some of your experiences and some of your favorite
Sure.
locations. And I'd also love to know what your reaction was when you were approached for this project.
Yeah. Well, I guess going back to the early days, when I first immigrated to Australia from Hawaii. I'm originally from Hawaii. So my original, I'm a resort guy, at heart. I always have been, and I grew up on resorts in my early part of my career. I immigrated to Australia as a young man, to the old Hyatt Coolum,
Mm.
up on the Sunshine Coast, which I just thought that was still has to be. I mean, it was a wonderful part of my life. My family was very young, and my kids, my daughter hadn't been born yet, but my son could run
Wow.
around everywhere and the beach, and was unspoiled and still is. I mean, they haven't touched the beach since those times, since the 90s. It's the
Yeah.
same. Unfortunately, that hotel with Hyatt, that's gone away now. I think the golf course is open, but the rest of it's just not gotten back open again for a lot of reasons, I think. But great memories of that. So most of my memories are rooted in resorts. The first time I came actually to Bali was in 1989, with the intention of coming here, full time with Hyatt, but that didn't work out. So I went back to Hawaii, got married, and then we ended up eventually, making it back here. So Bali's always been a big place in our heart. So when I heard that I had the opportunity to come here through a friend of mine who works with In Journey Hospitality, which is the parent group, he was finishing up the project. They needed a general manager. I was in Jakarta, and I was finishing up two hotel projects there, which I opened up two hotels,
Which
and it
ones?
just
Which ones in
perfect
Jakarta?
time. I opened up the Park World Service Suites and the Pan Pacific Hotel in the new Thamrin 9 right downtown. Which was that's an exciting project. Two 90-story towers, 100-story tower. But that's still under development, and it wasn't quite ready to get to the next stages of the third
Right.
hotel, finishing the shopping center and all these other integrated elements. So when I had the opportunity to came here, I'd always wanted to come back to Bali from the longest time, because really, my history is working in a lot of city hotels, to be very honest, through major capitals of Asia in particular. Southeast Asia has always been my favorite place, because I find I'm very comfortable with the people and the
I do
interaction.
too.
Yeah, so I've worked as far north as China, as far as west as India, but coming back around the track, I'd have to say probably this experience here, along with my time in Burma, in mind, that was probably one of my most favorite places as well, because again, if I look at the personalities of the people in both of those places, very very similar, and their way of life and the way that they celebrate life and the things that they hold important are. I think is resonates very much with me, especially after being in busy cities, in Hong Kong and China, Singapore. Since the first time I was there to the second time I was, it's grown like exponentially, right?
Oh,
And the characters changed a lot, in that stuff, and, but here you still have that. And as I say, it's normal, the way that people should be acting, right? As far as their approach to life, they haven't changed much.
yes.
That's the history of Bali. After everything that they've always remained the same spirit in the way that they've
It's
approached
true.
life, which I respect, and I think it comes through a lot, with the way that we serve people here. And again, that's probably one of most comforting things about what I do here. Again, my job is to really, teach them the fine points of service and luxury, and make sure they
Yes.
understand what's the deliverables there. But at the end of the day, how we deliver it, we let them be themselves, and I think it's working out quite nicely for us.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah,
given your global scope and view on the world of luxury hotels, where
yeah,
do you see the most growth globally coming from in the industry? And what's the future of the
yeah.
industry looking like from where you're sitting there in Bali?
Well, I think people are really looking now for experiences that are more bespoke and sort of off the beaten path, but also connected to the environment, and getting something else out of it just by being just not being on holiday, right? They want to escape, and I think
Mm.
that now if you look at the way that people can travel just pretty much anywhere, and it's really all about making sure that people have access to that. One of the things that we do as a company, In Journey Hospitality and In Journey Holdings, it's a state-owned Indonesian company, and
Mm.
the purpose of that is to create a tourism ecosystem through the airports, through air travel and the routes, as well as then giving people experiences in other places in Indonesia. Some of the places that are a little bit more, off the beaten path. We've got a hotel in Labuan Bajo, for example,
In where,
and many
sorry?
other places. Labuan Bajo,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Timor.
I've been there. It's amazing. What's the
Yeah,
name of your
yeah.
hotel there?
Amazing place, the Meru. We have a second
Oh, is it
Meru.
new?
Yes, it is. It is actually. That's one of our new hotels. So they're creating hotels and they're renovating all the old heritage hotels, like we've done here at the Bali Beach. And again, giving people access to those points and with that high level of standards that one would expect when they get there. And they're making great gains with that. And I think that's really that legacy that In Journey Hospitality will leave is again making sure that people get to the outer reaches of Indonesia, because not just Bali but
100%. I
Lombok.
mean, the
Yeah,
world needs to take their foot off the accelerator in Bali. Let's be honest.
yeah,
I mean, there's just too many
absolutely.
people going there
Yeah,
now, and
yeah.
there's the
Well,
consequences of that can be
there's still
seen.
room for others, but not necessarily in the places that are most crowded. So what you see now, that's why Sanur is becoming a more desirable destination, because there's more capacity here now with our properties. But also in the northern parts around, which are very reachable from here for day trips, up not only to Ubud, but up to Kintamani and around the north and west sides of Bali. That's still really, it's still unspoiled and unexplored. And that's the real tourism now. So if you come to Seminyak, you go to Kuta, and you're staying on that side, because you want to party, and that's fair enough. But that's not really what people are looking for when you get a little bit more of an experienced traveler, especially luxury travels. They're looking for something a little bit more off the beaten path. And there's a lot of opportunities for people to experience that. And the nice thing about Sonora, again, we're outside of that congestion, so you can just hop in and hop out of those other areas, which it becomes quite appealing for our guests. We do a lot of day trips for our luxury guests, not only in the water, but also over land.
And when you travel, where do you like to go? I mean, you've lived almost everywhere. So where's your when you need to get away? Where do you go? Is it in
Well,
luxury?
I've always made it a point, wherever I live, I make sure I see as much of that country as possible. So I'd have to say, my wife and I, we've been pretty successful for that. I think even when our kids are all grown up now. I've got one son down in Melbourne. He went to school there. He stayed there. My daughter went to school in Vancouver. She lives there. She stayed there. So we do like to travel to see our kids, and our grandchildren in Melbourne. But it's when it's just my wife and I. We are determined as much as possible to see as much as Bali as we can. And every time I get a day off or something like that, when I do get a day off, we try to get off to another part of the island that we haven't seen yet, which is very exciting for us. Or get to one of the islands, for example. Lombok is quite a favorite. So yeah, I think it's yeah, try to stay where I am, see as much as possible, and in between then obviously I go see my kids. But when we travel, we like to stay. It doesn't have to be ultra luxury. We like to rough it a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah.
Glamping, there's a lot of glamping opportunities here as well. A lot of eco resorts, which we like.
Yeah, it's
Quite a
true.
few
Where are your
favorites.
kids? Where do your kids live?
My son lives in Melbourne.
Hmm.
He's down. He went to the University of Melbourne. He's been there for about 10 years now, and
Wow.
he's a real Aussie. And then we've been blessed with two beautiful granddaughters,
Oh,
and my daughter lives in
congratulations.
Vancouver. She went to University of British Columbia. She lives there. She works actually at the university now. and she's our little tree hugger. She's a sustainability, by background, but she's doing events management at University of British Columbia, which is so she's kind
So
of in
you're
the
truly
hospitality.
a
Yeah.
global family.
Yeah. Well, it takes a while to get around. My wife also has a business with her sister in the States, so she goes back to the States a couple of times a year. She does the long haul travels. I get back maybe every 5 or 6 years to the States. I don't really get back, but whenever we do go back, we always stop in Hawaii on the way.
Oh,
That's always
beautiful.
got,
Back to your
that's always got to
roots.
be. Yeah, we miss that, but that's why I like Bali. It's a lot like Hawaii. The vibe and the water. I like
Yeah.
to be in the water, so yeah, it's quite nice here. But
How
we
beautiful.
got a lot of work to do here. But
Yeah.
but in between, when we do get away, I like to like not to get too far, just far enough, just that we get to
Have a
sort of
break.
decompress into another sort of zone somewhere out in the
Fantastic.
mountains or the jungle here, which is great.
So, Ed, we
Yeah.
ask all of our guests before you go, where to from here? And it might be what you're doing today, what your next project is, what your
Yeah.
next adventure is. So, where
Right.
to from here, Ed Brea?
Well, I don't have any plans to travel for the rest of this year. There's a trade show in Las Vegas for the convention business that I might have to attend probably later in the year. So if I do that, I'll probably go to some of the Western states. I've got some family out there, and definitely go to Vancouver to see my daughter. But that's, I think, at the end of the day, for me, I'm pretty happy here where I am right now. And, I'd like to stay here for a while. It is towards the end of my career. And to be
Mhm.
very honest, I don't see, moving anywhere else, anything compelling reason for me to do that. I have a home here in Bali as well. So this is always going to be a part of our life. So the warmer months, will be where it's warm. The colder months will be here. So I
It's
think
never
that's always
cold
got.
in Bali.
Yeah, I'm not a winter guy. Snow kind of freaks me out. I'm always gonna, I think, yeah, Vancouver. I opened up the Shangri-La in Vancouver one time. That's why my daughter ended up going to school there by chance.
Wow.
But when it was rainy and cold, I just stayed inside. I didn't get out
Yeah.
much. Yeah,
No, I can relate to that. I think once I've
yeah,
lived in Southeast Asia for a while, where the temperature
yeah.
basically never changes apart from a few degrees, you do get used to the warmth and the
I just
humidity and the wonderful skin it gives you and all of that that goes with it.
Yeah, I stay close to the equator, but Brisbane, we consider Brisbane to be actually our home base,
Ah,
in Queensland. So eventually, my permanent sort of residence would be probably based in Brisbane, but then just kind of just keep branching out from there whenever we. But that's a long way off. I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe 5 6 years from now, maybe, but not quite there yet to settle down one place.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, look, it sounds like I'm going to have to come back to the hotel and see it when all these restaurants and bars are opened. As I said, it
And the
was just
spa,
such a glorious
you
experience.
mentioned the spa. The spa is wonderful. It really celebrates, the meaning of what it is to be Balinese as far as the way we do the treatments. When we did the spa, we'll open the spa in June. Yeah, probably end of May or June. But you experienced the spa that we set up. That was actually purpose built as a temporary spa.
Wow.
So it's a fabulous environment on itself. But when we open up the actual spa, it's going to be another elevated, sort of experience there. And that's we, yeah, just yeah, it's sometimes takes a little bit longer to do things correctly. So we're making sure that we get it right, and we're actually, we've got a great temporary facility, but I hope to welcome you back when we have the permanent. That way you can see it again, like that next level of care and
Yeah.
sort of
No,
treatment.
absolutely. And I have a confession that I stayed
Cool.
there, I think it was 3 nights and 4 days. And I was
Okay.
so busy with these incredible breakfasts, these amazing lunches. I didn't even get to the Indonesian restaurant. I couldn't fit any
Okay.
more food in because your staff they were sending me
Okay.
this, they were sending me that. So I have to come back to eat there.
Did you get to the gym?
I did. I like the gym. I got to the
You
gym
did get
several
to the gym.
times.
Okay, you got to the gym. As long as you got to the gym,
I'm a
maybe a
gym
couple.
person. So I was in the
Yeah.
gym every day. This is the thing. I'm very into fitness. And I was in the
Yeah.
spa every day because I
Okay.
went to the spa and I saw this woman there reading someone's tarot cards. And I quickly texted you don't call them butlers, my assistant, my ambassador.
Yeah.
And I said, please, do you think it's possible? Can I have my fortune told? And I went, and that was
Yeah.
quite harrowing, Ed. I'm not sure that I really wanted to do that,
No,
but I did it.
I don't want to do that. They've asked me to do that a couple of times. No, I've done most of the local treatments. My favorite one is the Lucata. which is basically helps you cleanse all your past transgressions. Not that I have a
Yes.
lot, but it's always good to refresh and start from zero. But my wife thought that was pretty appropriate. But at the end of the day,
Excellent.
for me, the tarot cards is it's interesting, and I've seen people do it. People shared their experience with that with me, but I'm not sure I want to really know what's going to happen.
And your
or what-
tarot card reader, I'll give you the insider tip, does not hold
Okay.
back. She says it
Okay.
how it is.
Well, I mean, sometimes as a GM, there's certain things you just don't want to hear, So
I think sometimes as a human
I'll
being,
probably
there's
put
things
that
you
in
just
the
don't want to hear.
category. Probably put that in the category. Yeah, just some things I
Absolutely.
don't need to know. Yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah.
hear you. But look, we've got to go, unfortunately, but it was just wonderful to have this conversation.
No, it's
Congratulations
lovely
on the
talking to you as
amazing
well.
Meru and the whole estate
Okay.
there.
Okay, but all your Aussie following, I hope that we get to see more of them up here.
They're all going to come. I'm
Well,
telling you right now.
the feedback we get from the Australian crowd is, I mean, is amazing. They really feel well
Yes.
taken care of when they're here, and they feel the same way I do about, that sort of serenity. And when they need to get decompressed, they like you said, a lot of people they like to come here last, and I would suggest that, right? So they get all ramped up on
Agreed.
the other side, coming around, and then they come here and they
And
can completely
And
decompress.
I don't know if you know this stat, but luxury travel is the second biggest export spending item in this country. So as
Yeah.
I say, for anyone coming to Bali, you've got to stay in the Meru, 100%.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, appreciate
Absolutely.
your kind
Thank
words.
you.
I'll make sure
Thank
I
you for
pass
your
it along.
time.
Okay. Thank you again, Renae.
Absolutely. Keep in
All the
touch.
best.
We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye for
Bye-bye.
now.
Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.